You know this person. You might be this person. They wake up early. They dress well. They reply to emails fast. They look calm. They look put together. From the outside, everything looks fine. But inside, there is a quiet panic that never fully leaves. The bank balance is low. The credit card is heavy. The next paycheck already has a job before it arrives. This is not the kind of broke that looks dramatic. There are no eviction notices taped to the door. There are no public meltdowns. There is no visible crisis. The kind that smiles in public and worries in private. This is what it means to be quietly broke. Most people think being broke looks obvious. They imagine missed bills and empty fridges and desperate conversations. They think you can spot financial struggle from far away, but that belief is outdated. Today, financial stress wears nice shoes. It sits in coffee shops with laptops open. It shows up to work on time and does its job well. It looks responsible, and that is what makes it so dangerous. Because when struggle looks normal, it stops getting questioned. It stops getting help. It becomes a lifestyle instead of a warning sign. Quietly broke people do not complain much. They tell themselves it is temporary. They assume everyone feels this way. They think once they earn a little more, things will finally calm down. But the calm never comes. Instead, the pressure slowly increases. Not enough to explode, just enough to exhaust. This video is not about bad habits or bad choices. It is not about blaming or shaming. It is about something deeper and more uncomfortable. It is about how an entire generation learned how to look stable without ever feeling secure. You were taught a simple formula: work hard, get educated, stay disciplined, and everything will eventually work out. That formula shaped your decisions. It shaped your patience. It shaped what you were willing to tolerate. And now many people are realizing something unsettling. They followed the formula, and the outcome does not match the promise. The stress they feel is not loud. It is persistent. It hums in the background of daily life. It shows up when you open your banking app, when you hesitate before making plans, when you calculate costs before calculating joy. You can afford things, just not comfortably. You can survive, just not relax. This is the emotional center of being quietly broke. You are not failing, but you are also not moving forward the way you expected. And that creates a very specific kind of confusion. You start questioning yourself instead of the system around you. You wonder why progress feels so slow, why effort does not feel rewarded. You tell yourself to be grateful, to stop comparing, to just keep going. So you do. You keep going while carrying invisible weight. You keep going while postponing rest. You keep going while telling yourself it will make sense later. Quietly broke people are experts at endurance. They know how to stretch money. They know how to delay desires. They know how to make things look fine even when they are not. But endurance is not the same as stability. And over time, endurance becomes expensive. It costs peace. It costs clarity. It costs long-term confidence. This is why the rise of the quietly broke millennial matters. Not because of trends or labels, but because it reveals a gap between appearance and reality that keeps growing. A gap where stress hides. A gap where shame grows quietly. A gap where people stop asking for help because nothing looks wrong. This is the generation that learned how to perform adulthood without ever feeling safe inside it. They pay their bills. They show up. They try to be responsible. Yet they feel one small disruption away from falling apart. That feeling changes how people think. It changes how they spend. It changes how they plan. It changes what they believe is possible for their future. And most importantly, it changes what they stop hoping for. This video is about that shift. It is about how quiet financial pressure reshapes behavior long before it shows up in numbers. It is about why so many people feel stuck even when they appear successful. And it is about understanding this experience without judgment, because you cannot fix what you do not understand. If any part of this feels familiar, if you have ever thought I should be doing better than this, if you have ever felt tired without knowing exactly why, this conversation is for you. Not to scare you, not to sell you anything. The quiet broke life does not begin with failure. It begins with trying to do everything right. The quietly broke life does not feel dramatic. It feels ordinary. It feels like waking up and checking your phone before you even get out of bed. Not to scroll, but to see if anything unexpected happened to your money overnight. It feels like opening your banking app and doing quick mental math. Rent is coming. A bill is due. Something else will probably pop up. Nothing is technically wrong, but nothing feels secure either. You go through your day like everyone else. You work. You respond. You handle responsibilities. From the outside, you look functional. From the inside, you are constantly adjusting. You ask yourself, will this create stress later? You second-guess even small decisions. You tell yourself you will buy it next month. Next month comes, and something else takes priority. This becomes normal. You do not think of it as struggle. You think of it as being careful. Careful with money. Careful with plans. Careful with expectations. You avoid conversations about finances because they feel awkward. You nod along when people talk about trips or upgrades or big goals. You smile and say maybe someday. You are not lying. You are postponing hope. At home, there is a low-level tension that never fully turns off. You think about money while cooking, while showering, while trying to relax. It is not panic. It is background noise. You feel it when you choose cheaper options even when you earn more than you used to. You feel it when your income goes up but your breathing does not get easier. This is one of the most confusing parts. You did what you were told. You moved forward. You improved your situation on paper. Yet your nervous system did not get the memo. You still feel tight. You still feel cautious. You still feel behind. Quietly broke people become very good at explaining things away. This month was unusual. Next month will be better. Once this expense is gone, things will calm down. But calm never fully arrives. Instead, life becomes a series of short recoveries. You pay something off. Then something else replaces it. You feel relief for a moment. Then the cycle resets. You start living in reaction mode. Not crisis mode. Reaction mode. You are always responding to what just happened instead of planning ahead with confidence. You do not feel poor. You also do not feel stable. That middle space is exhausting. You hesitate to celebrate wins because they feel fragile. But everything is never fully handled. You notice how your thinking shifts. You stop asking what you want. You start asking what you can afford emotionally. Because money stress is not just about numbers. It is about the mental cost of uncertainty. It is about carrying responsibility without a sense of safety. Quietly broke people often feel guilty for feeling stressed. They tell themselves others have it worse. They remind themselves they are lucky. So they silence their own discomfort. But suppressed stress does not disappear. It settles. It shows up as irritability, as tiredness, as a constant sense of being behind schedule in life. You might notice yourself avoiding long-term thinking, not because you do not care about the future, but because imagining it feels overwhelming. It is easier to focus on the next week, the next bill, the next obligation. Decision fatigue becomes a daily companion. Every choice carries weight. Every expense feels like a trade-off. Even enjoyable moments have an edge to them. You are present, but part of you is calculating. This is not about wanting luxury. It is about wanting breathing room. Quietly broke people are not reckless. They are hyper-aware. They track spending mentally even if they never write it down. They feel the consequences of every choice almost immediately, and yet they are told they should just budget better. That advice feels insulting not because budgeting is bad, but because the problem does not feel like ignorance. It feels like pressure from all sides. You see images of progress everywhere. People buying homes, people leveling up, people announcing milestones. You compare quietly, not out of jealousy, but out of confusion. How are they doing this? What am I missing? You wonder if you are secretly bad with money, if you made a wrong turn somewhere. But when you look closely, there is no obvious mistake. Just a long stretch of effort without a clear payoff. That disconnect creates self-doubt. And self-doubt keeps people quiet. They stop talking about money honestly. They stop asking questions. They assume they should already know how to fix this. So they keep going. functioning, smiling, managing, all while carrying the weight of feeling one step away from trouble. This is the emotional environment where quietly broke behavior grows, not from irresponsibility, but from constant low-level stress, because behavior always follows emotion. And when people feel uncertain for long periods of time, they adapt in ways that make sense in the moment, even if those adaptations quietly cost them later. You have to look at how the human mind reacts to long-term pressure. Most people believe financial behavior is logical. They think people spend or save based on knowledge. That belief sounds reasonable. It is also incomplete. In real life, money decisions are emotional first and logical second. When someone lives under constant financial uncertainty, their brain shifts into protection mode, not panic mode. Protection mode. Protection mode is quiet. It is cautious. It is conservative. This is where quietly broke patterns begin. When people feel unsure about the future, they stop trusting long-term plans, not because they lack discipline, but because they lack confidence that the reward will actually arrive. The mind starts asking a different question. Instead of how do I build a better future, it asks how do I avoid things getting worse. That shift changes everything. Imagine walking across a bridge you do not trust. You would not sprint. You would move slowly, carefully. You would focus on not falling rather than reaching the other side. That is what financial life feels like for many quietly broke people. They are not climbing toward goals. They are inching forward, trying not to slip. From the outside, this looks like hesitation. From the inside, it feels like survival. There is another psychological layer that rarely gets talked about. When effort does not lead to relief, the brain learns something dangerous. It learns that effort does not equal safety. People work harder. They earn more. They still feel stretched. Over time, this creates learned caution. Why push aggressively when pushing has never created peace? So the brain adapts. It focuses on comfort and stability in small moments. A good meal, a small upgrade, a brief sense of control. This is not recklessness. It is self-regulation. When long-term stability feels unreachable, the mind pulls comfort closer. This is why quietly broke behavior often gets misunderstood. People see spending and assume carelessness. They see hesitation and assume lack of ambition. What they are actually seeing is a nervous system trying to balance itself under pressure. Another powerful force at work is identity. Most millennials were raised with a clear story about success. Study hard, be responsible, build a stable life. That story became part of their identity. So when reality does not match the story, it creates internal conflict. They do not think the system failed. They think they failed. That belief is heavy. It creates shame even when no mistake was made. And shame thrives in silence. Quietly broke people often feel they should not talk about money stress because they appear successful. They fear sounding ungrateful. They fear being judged. They fear admitting they are struggling while doing everything right. So they keep it to themselves. Psychologically, this isolation makes stress feel larger. You assume you are the only one still tense. This reinforces the quiet part of quietly broke. There is also the pressure of visibility. Milestones get shared. Struggles get hidden. This creates a distorted sense of normal. When everyone looks like they are moving forward, you assume standing still is failure. So you keep performing stability. You dress the part. You speak the part. You keep up appearances not out of vanity, but out of self-preservation. Because admitting instability feels like social risk, the mind prefers manageable stress over social rejection. So people choose to be quietly stressed rather than openly vulnerable. Another psychological factor is time compression. When money is tight, your mental time horizon shrinks. You stop thinking in years. You think in weeks, sometimes days. Long-term planning requires a sense of safety. Without safety, the brain focuses on immediate concerns. You cannot plan far ahead if your mind is constantly scanning for threats. And here is the most important psychological piece. Quietly broke people often feel responsible for fixing a problem they did not create. They internalize pressure that should be shared by systems and structures. This creates burnout without resolution. They keep trying harder. optimizing, cutting, adjusting. But effort alone cannot solve a mismatch between cost and capacity. The mind knows this before the numbers do. That is why so many people feel tired without being able to explain why. It is cognitive load. It is the weight of constant calculation, constant vigilance, constant restraint. Understanding this matters because it changes the conversation. It shifts the focus from what is wrong with you to what you are responding to. Quietly broke behavior is not irrational. It is adaptive. Once you see that the shame starts to loosen, and when shame loosens, clarity becomes possible. Not as punishment, but as trade-offs. And those trade-offs add up quietly over time. Living quietly broke does not just affect your present, it quietly reshapes your future. The cost is not dramatic or immediate. It is slow. It shows up over time. The first invisible cost is time. When you spend years in survival mode, you delay momentum, not because you are lazy, but because survival leaves little room for strategy. Small delays compound. Postponed saving becomes missed growth. Postponed decisions become fewer options later. Postponed rest becomes chronic exhaustion. Nothing collapses, but nothing accelerates either. Another cost is confidence. When effort does not lead to relief, people slowly stop trusting their ability to improve things. They become cautious even when opportunities appear. This is not fear. It is learned restraint. The mind remembers how hard it was just to stay afloat, so it avoids risks that might rock the boat. Over time, this creates a gap between what someone is capable of and what they feel safe attempting. That gap is expensive. Then there is the emotional cost. Constant low-level stress trains the body to stay tense. Even during calm moments, the nervous system stays alert. This makes rest less effective, joy less present, decisions more draining. Life becomes something to manage rather than experience. Eventually, many quietly broke people reach a turning point, not a dramatic breakdown, a quiet realization. They see that survival has become their default setting. This moment is not about blame. It is about clarity. The realization is simple. If I keep reacting, I will keep feeling behind. This does not mean everything suddenly becomes affordable. This is where mindset changes before money does. The shift is from looking successful to feeling secure. That shift creates space for a practical framework, not a perfect plan, a survivable one. Step 1 is reducing mental load. Instead of tracking everything mentally, you externalize it. You write things down. You create simple clarity, not to restrict yourself, but to stop your brain from carrying everything alone. Clarity reduces stress before it increases savings. Step 2 is prioritizing stability over optimization. Quietly broke people often chase efficiency, better systems, better hacks. What they need first is predictability, stable routines, stable expenses where possible, stable expectations. This builds psychological safety. Step 3 is separating relief from reward. Relief expenses are things that reduce stress. Reward expenses are things that celebrate progress. When everything feels like a reward, spending becomes emotional. Creating small intentional relief removes pressure from impulse decisions. Step 4 is extending the time horizon gently. Not 5-year plans, not big visions, just one step further than before. From weeks to months, from months to a year. This rebuilds trust in planning. Step 5 is redefining progress. Progress is not looking better. It is feeling less tense. It is fewer late-night worries, fewer moments of panic. That is real movement. To make this concrete, imagine to average people. One earns a modest income and stops chasing the image of success. They simplify their life. They build a small buffer. Nothing flashy happens, but their stress slowly drops. The other earns more but keeps performing stability. They upgrade constantly. They stay stretched. On paper, they look ahead. Inside, they stay stuck. Over time, the first person gains flexibility. The second stays fragile. This is the quiet difference security makes. There are common misconceptions that keep people stuck. One is believing higher income automatically fixes stress. It does not if structure stays fragile. Another is thinking discipline alone creates safety. Discipline without margin creates burnout. Another is assuming everyone else has it figured out. They do not. Many are just quieter about it. Long-term, the payoff of breaking the quietly broke cycle is not luxury. It is peace. It is waking up without immediate calculation. It is making decisions with less fear. It is feeling grounded even when things are not perfect. Security compounds emotionally before it compounds financially. When stress decreases, clarity increases. When clarity increases, choices expand. That is how real progress builds. Slowly, quietly, honestly. It is a signal that the old rules no longer match reality. A signal that looking fine is no longer enough. The goal is not to impress. It is to feel steady. And steadiness is something that can be built. Not overnight, not perfectly, but intentionally. If you recognize yourself in this experience, you are not broken. You are responding to pressure the only way humans know how. Understanding that is the first step toward changing it. Not by pretending harder, but by choosing stability over performance. That is how quiet stress turns into quiet strength.